I never thought the day would come when my own son would look me in the eye and say, "You're not invited to my wedding." It wasn't just any wedding either. He was planning a grand celebration worth nearly $500,000, a wedding I had paid for. Yes, every dollar of it came from me and his late father's hard-earned savings. But that night, standing in the kitchen of the house he grew up in, my son's words cut deeper than a knife. "Mom," he said coldly, "this wedding isn't about you. We don't want unnecessary drama, so it's best if you don't come." At first I thought he was joking. I laughed nervously, waiting for him to smile. But instead he crossed his arms and stared at me like I was a stranger. My hands trembled. My heart pounded. "Are you serious? I've spent my life raising you, funding your education, and now your wedding. And you're telling me I don't belong there?" His fiancée, standing beside him, smirked and said quietly, "It's better this way. You'll only make things uncomfortable." That was the moment something inside me broke. All the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the times I went without so he could have more. It flashed before my eyes. And then came the betrayal that sealed everything. A message from my lawyer, a week earlier, without telling me. My son had tried to pressure me into signing over our family home, the same home his father and I built together brick by brick. He wanted me out, erased, forgotten. I didn't sign, and thank God I didn't. Because what my son didn't know was that his father had left behind a secret will, one he never knew about. And that will? It was about to change everything. That night, as I sat alone in the dark, I made a decision. If my own son could betray me so easily, then he didn't deserve a single cent of what I had given him. And trust me, when I took back every dollar, he learned the hard way that money cannot buy respect. I used to think that no matter what happened in life, my children would never turn away from me. My husband and I raised them with love, discipline, and sacrifice. After he passed away 3 years ago, I thought the bond I had with my son, Daniel, would only grow stronger. He was always the closest to his father, and I hoped that with him gone, I could fill that space. But little by little, I started noticing something unsettling. It began with shorter phone calls. Then came the excuses for why he couldn't visit. "Busy with work, Mom," or "Traffic is terrible today." I told myself it was normal. He was young, ambitious, and had his own life now. Still, a mother knows when something is off. Then came his fiancée, Claire. At first, I welcomed her warmly. She was polite, all smiles, and seemed eager to win me over. But soon I noticed a change in Daniel. He became distant, even defensive, as if he needed to shield her from me. One Sunday dinner, I asked him gently, "Daniel, are you sure you're okay?" "You've been so quiet lately," he snapped. "Mom, I'm fine. Not everything has to be about you." That sentence hit me like a slap. I had never heard my son speak to me like that. The table fell silent, my daughter looking at me with wide eyes, Claire smirking behind her wine glass. I swallowed my pride, laughed it off, and changed the subject. But deep inside, I knew something had shifted. My son wasn't just drifting away, he was being pulled away. The confirmation came 2 weeks later when he handed me a brown envelope and said casually, "Mom, I need you to sign these papers." "It's just routine stuff." I looked at him, puzzled. "What kind of papers?" "Oh, just some property things. It's easier for tax purposes," he said quickly, avoiding my eyes. I felt a chill run through me. Something told me this wasn't just routine. The next day, I walked into my lawyer's office with the envelope in hand. Mr. Harris had been our family lawyer for decades. He handled my husband's business affairs and was one of the few people I trusted completely. I slid the papers across his desk. "Daniel says these are routine. Can you check them?" He adjusted his glasses, scanned through, and his face darkened. "Routine?" he muttered. "This is far from routine." My stomach sank. "What do you mean?" He looked me straight in the eye. "These papers transfer ownership of your home to Daniel. If you sign this, you give up all rights. You'd essentially be a guest in your own house." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the chair. My son wanted me to sign away the home his father and I built together. The same home where I brought him from the hospital as a newborn, where we celebrated birthdays, Christmas mornings, and family dinners. "Why would he do this?" I whispered. Mr. Harris sighed. "My guess, pressure. These things don't just happen." He must have someone in his ear. I didn't need to guess who. "Claire." I left the office in shock, my heart pounding. That night I confronted Daniel. "Why didn't you tell me what those papers really were?" I asked. He shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, it's not a big deal. Claire's parents said it's smarter to secure the property before the wedding. It's for the future." "Don't you trust me?" The word stung. He was turning my love into a weapon. Trust, loyalty, security. And yet he was asking me to erase myself from my own life. I refused to sign. But in his eyes, I could see resentment growing. The restaurant was grand, chandeliers, long tables, waiters in crisp uniforms. I walked in with hope in my chest, thinking this was finally the moment my son and I would bond again. Instead, I was greeted with polite smiles that felt more like smirks. Claire's parents were already seated, talking loudly about how their side of the family was covering so much of the wedding. My daughter and I exchanged glances. We both knew the truth. The savings I had set aside after my husband's death were funding the majority of it. But no one acknowledged that. Throughout dinner, I was ignored, dismissed, interrupted. Every time I tried to contribute to the conversation, Claire's mother spoke over me. When I suggested a family tradition for the ceremony, Claire laughed and said, "Oh, that's too old-fashioned. We don't want the wedding to feel outdated." I bit my tongue. My daughter squeezed my hand under the table, silently urging me not to cry. Then, in front of everyone, Daniel cleared his throat. "Mom, we've been thinking. Maybe it's better if you don't come to the wedding." The words echoed in my ears. "What?" I whispered. "It's nothing personal," Claire added smoothly. "We just don't want unnecessary drama. It'll be less stressful for everyone if you stay home." The table went quiet. I felt every eye on me. My son wouldn't meet my gaze. I stood up, my voice trembling but firm. "After everything I've done for you, you're telling me I don't belong at my own son's wedding?" Daniel muttered, "It's for the best." And that was the moment my world fell apart. After that humiliating dinner, I tried to stay away. I told myself I wouldn't cry anymore, that I would be strong. But mothers are mothers. No matter how much your child hurts you, there's always that part of you that hopes tomorrow will be different. So when I heard through neighbors that Daniel and Claire were planning a wedding worth nearly $500,000, my jaw dropped. I couldn't believe it. $500,000? For a wedding? At first, I thought maybe Claire's wealthy parents were footing the bill. But the truth was even more painful. The money was mine. I had worked side by side with my husband, saved every cent we could. After he died, I carefully invested his life insurance payout and his business shares. That nest egg, meant for family security, emergencies, and the future, was what Daniel used, and he didn't even tell me. I learned this when I overheard Claire on the phone one day. I had gone to drop off some things for my daughter at the mall, and by sheer coincidence, Claire was there with her friends. "The wedding is costing about $500,000, she bragged, flipping her hair. Daniel's late dad left enough money and his mom's too soft to say no. Honestly, it's practically my money now." Her friends laughed. My knees went weak. I had to sit down. "So this was how she saw me? A foolish old woman funding her dream wedding?" That night, my daughter came into my room, pale and trembling. "Mom, I think they're trying to cut us out completely," she whispered. "What do you mean?" I asked, bracing myself. She explained how she overheard Claire and Daniel whispering about securing the assets before the wedding. They talked about how once everything was in Daniel's name, they could move Mom out without a scene. Tears burned in my eyes. My own flesh and blood, conspiring to erase me. The next day, I decided to show up at the bridal fitting. Maybe deep down, I wanted to prove my daughter wrong. Maybe I wanted to believe there was still a place for me in Daniel's life. When I walked into the boutique, heads turned. Claire's friends giggled, whispering behind their hands. Claire herself looked me up and down like I was dirt under her shoe. "Mom," Daniel said through clenched teeth, "what are you doing here?" "I wanted to be part of the preparations," I said, forcing a smile. "You're my son. This is your wedding," Claire rolled her eyes. This is exactly what I was worried about. "We don't need her ruining everything." "Claire," I said firmly, "I'm not here to ruin anything. I just wanted to see my son happy." But Daniel's face hardened. "Mom, you don't belong here." Those words, I can't even describe the pain. I felt like someone had pulled the ground from under me. I wanted to scream, to tell everyone that I was the reason this entire wedding was even possible. But the humiliation was too much. I turned and walked out, holding back tears. My daughter followed me outside, hugging me tightly. "They don't deserve you," she whispered. That evening, when I thought my heart couldn't break any further, my phone rang. It was Mr. Harris, my lawyer. "Mrs. Thompson," he said gravely. "We need to meet tomorrow. It's about your husband's will. There's something I haven't told you." My heart skipped a beat. My husband's will? I thought everything had been settled after his passing. What could possibly be left? The next morning, I sat across from Mr. Harris in his oak-paneled office. He poured me a glass of water before speaking, his expression heavy. "There's something I need to tell you," he began. "When your husband passed, he left a standard will that we executed, dividing some assets between you and the children. But he also left a second will." My heart raced. "A second will? Why didn't you tell me?" He leaned forward. "Because it was meant to be revealed only if certain conditions were met. And with Daniel pushing you to sign away the house, those conditions are now relevant." I clutched the arm of my chair. "What does it say?" Mr. Harris opened a folder and handed me a sealed letter in my husband's handwriting. Tears blurred my vision as I recognized his script. Inside, my husband explained everything. He had updated the will before his passing, worried that Daniel might be easily influenced by greed or outside pressure. He left the family home, a large piece of land, and a trust fund solely under my name, with strict instructions. They could not be touched or transferred without my consent. I sat there shaking. Relief, grief, and anger all swirled inside me. My husband had protected me even in death, but Mr. Harris wasn't finished. "Your son doesn't know about this will," he said, "but I've heard rumors. He's trying to challenge the estate in court backed by Claire's family." My blood ran cold. My own son was preparing to fight me in court, as if I were an enemy. Holding that letter from my husband felt like holding a piece of his soul. His handwriting, neat but slightly rushed, carried so much of his voice that I could almost hear him speaking. "If you are reading this," the letter began, "it means the fears I carried in my heart have come true. I always worried that Daniel might not see the true value of family and that someone could lead him astray. That is why I changed my will. Not to hurt him, but to protect you, and to make sure our hard work isn't wasted on greed." I couldn't stop the tears from rolling down my cheeks. He reminded me of the life we built together. How he worked late nights at the factory, saving every penny, while I raised the kids and managed the household. How he invested in a small piece of land, saying, "This will be our legacy one day." He wanted our children to inherit not just money, but values, respect, loyalty, and gratitude. In the letter, he confessed that he had doubts about Daniel's maturity even back then. He worried about the influence of outsiders who might see our family wealth as an opportunity. Reading those words, I knew he had seen what I was blind to. The will gave me full ownership of the house, the land, and a trust fund that could only be accessed under my signature. My husband's foresight saved me from losing everything, but what struck me the most was the final line of the letter. "If Daniel chooses money over love, let him face the consequences. But if he chooses to return, forgive him, because a mother's love is the last refuge a child can have." I clutched that letter to my chest and cried. I gave Emily, my daughter, her letter the next morning. She read it quietly, tears filling her eyes. "Dad always believed in me," she whispered. "He knew I'd stay by your side." Her words warmed my broken heart. Emily had been my strength throughout this storm. While Daniel pushed me away, she pulled me closer. She helped around the house, comforted me when I cried, and never once asked for money or favors. In her letter, my husband had thanked her for her loyalty and urged her to protect me if Daniel ever failed to do so. Emily hugged me tight and said, "Don't worry, Mom, I won't let them take what's ours." Her loyalty gave me courage, but fate wasn't done testing me yet. One evening, Emily came home pale and shaken. "Mom," she said, "I overheard something." She explained how Daniel had been speaking with Claire and her parents. They were planning to move you out legally by claiming you were unfit to manage the property. They said once the house is in Daniel's name, they'll make you sign retirement papers and send you somewhere quiet. Claire even joked about putting you in a retirement home. I felt my chest tighten, my hands trembling. My own child, my son, plotting to throw me away like an old piece of furniture. Emily held my hand firmly. "Don't worry, Mom. They'll have to go through me first." Her words gave me strength. But the battle was escalating, and I knew soon it wouldn't just be whispers. It would become public. The pre-wedding party was supposed to be a joyous occasion. I wasn't invited, but one of my old friends insisted I come. "You're his mother," she said. "You have every right to be there." So against my better judgment, I went. I wore my best dress, held my head high, and prayed Daniel would welcome me, or at least tolerate my presence. At first, people were polite. Some guests came over to greet me, surprised but warm. I could see a flicker of discomfort in Daniel's eyes when he spotted me, but he didn't say anything. Then Claire grabbed the microphone for a toast. She smiled sweetly at the crowd and said, "We're so grateful to my parents who are making this wedding possible. Without their generosity, none of this would be happening." The room applauded. My heart dropped. Not a single mention of me. Not one word of acknowledgement for the sacrifices I made, the money I gave. One guest, trying to be kind, asked, "And Daniel's mother? Surely she helped too." Claire laughed. "Oh, she means well, but let's be honest. We'll handle the family wealth better than she ever could." "Isn't that right, Daniel?" Daniel chuckled nervously, not denying it. The entire room turned to look at me. My face burned with shame. I wanted to scream, to expose the truth, to tell everyone that I had paid for nearly everything. But instead I stood up, my dignity trembling but intact, and walked out. Outside, my daughter rushed to me, her eyes blazing. "How dare they? Mom, you don't have to take this anymore." And in that moment, I knew she was right. After the humiliation at the pre-wedding party, something inside me shifted. For months, I had been hurt, silenced, and disrespected. But now I was done being the victim. I pulled out my husband's letter, the will, and every financial document I had, and went straight to Mr. Harris. "Enough is enough," I told him. "I want everything put back under my control. I want my money, my property, and my dignity returned." He nodded firmly. "We'll start immediately." For weeks, I worked in silence. Emily helped me gather receipts, bank transfers, and every paper trail that proved I had paid for the wedding. My lawyer filed the necessary documents, quietly transferring back the funds that Daniel had tried to siphon away. At the same time, Mr. Harris uncovered something even more disturbing. Claire's family had been manipulating Daniel financially. They convinced him to funnel money into bogus investments that were actually tied to Claire's father's failing business. "They're bleeding him dry," Mr. Harris said grimly. "And once they get your house, they'll cut both of you out completely." The realization crushed me. Daniel wasn't just betraying me, he was being used. Still, he had made his choice, and choices have consequences. I stayed silent, playing the role of the outcast. I let them believe I was weak, defeated, and out of options. Meanwhile, I was pulling the strings in the background. The morning of the wedding was quiet for me. No guests, no music, no excitement. Just me sitting at my kitchen table with a hot cup of tea, waiting. I didn't put on a dress. I didn't head to the church. Instead, I picked up my phone and made a single call. To the bank. "Cancel the transfers," I instructed. "Every cent I contributed to that wedding fund, I want it reversed immediately." The clerk hesitated. "Ma'am, that will affect outstanding checks." "That's the point," I said coldly. Within hours, the effect rippled through the wedding. Florists refused to deliver the flowers when payments bounced. Caterers halted preparations. The band packed up their instruments. Even the venue manager stormed into the bridal suite demanding answers. Guests began to whisper as delays dragged on. The elegant hall turned into chaos. Meanwhile, I sat at home in silence, sipping my tea, knowing exactly what was happening. My phone buzzed with calls from unknown numbers. I didn't answer. Then Emily came rushing in, breathless, holding her phone. "Mom, it's everywhere. The wedding is falling apart. Guests are leaving. People are saying they can't pay anyone." I felt no joy, no satisfaction. Just a quiet calm. They wanted a wedding without me. Fine, but they'd have it without my money too. "How could you do this to me?" Daniel roared, slamming his fist on the table. His tuxedo was wrinkled, his hair a mess, his eyes wild with rage. I stood calmly, arms crossed. "Do what, Daniel? You ruined my wedding. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Do you know what they're saying about me? About us?" I met his anger with quiet strength. "I didn't ruin anything. You did that yourself when you decided I wasn't worthy of being at your wedding." He shook his head violently. "This isn't about respect. This is about money. I pulled out the envelope Mr. Harris had given me, the will, the letter, the proof. I laid them on the table. Then let's talk about money, I said. Your father knew what you might become. That's why he left everything to me, the house, the land, the trust. You tried to erase me, Daniel, but your father made sure you couldn't. He froze, staring at the documents. His face turned pale. You knew? He whispered. I knew everything, I replied. And I also know Claire's family was using you. Do you think they wanted you? No, they wanted the money. My money. And now they have nothing. He sank into a chair, his anger crumbling into despair. Mom, I didn't know it would come to this. Emily stepped forward, her voice firm. You didn't want to know. You chose them over us, and now look where it got you. Daniel buried his face in his hands. For the first time, I didn't feel like the weak, abandoned mother. I felt like the woman my husband always believed I was. Strong, wise, unshakable. The morning after the ruined wedding, the phone calls began. Reporters, angry vendors, and even distant relatives who had heard about the disaster. Everyone wanted answers. But the silence from Claire's family said it all. They had vanished. Claire's parents, once so loud and boastful, suddenly cut off all contact with Daniel. They refused to return his calls, blocked his messages, and even sent back the engagement gifts that had been exchanged. And Claire herself? She didn't even bother with an explanation. She sent a single text to Daniel. This isn't going to work. I can't build a life with someone who has nothing to offer. Just like that, she was gone. I wish I could say I felt pity for my son. But at that moment, I didn't. He had been warned. He had seen my tears, and he had still chosen greed over loyalty. Within a week, the truth came out. Mr. Harris uncovered the fraudulent dealings Claire's family had dragged Daniel into. Shady investments, fake business ventures, and debts that weren't even in his name. They had been setting him up to be the fall guy all along. The same people he had betrayed me for had left him humiliated and bankrupt. He came to my house again, but this time, his rage was gone. He stood in the doorway, broken, his voice cracking. Mom, I don't have anyone else. While Daniel spiraled, Emily remained my anchor. She never once asked for more than I could give. She helped me manage the paperwork, kept me company through the sleepless nights, and reminded me daily that I was not alone. One evening, I sat her down at the kitchen table with the will spread out before us. Your father always believed in fairness, I told her, but he also believed in loyalty. You stood by me when no one else did. That's why I've decided to transfer part of the trust into your name now. Not later, now. Her eyes widened in shock. Mom! No, you don't have to. I took her hands in mine. Yes, I do. You've shown me that love isn't about money, and that's exactly why you deserve it. Tears streamed down her face as she hugged me tightly. I'll take care of you, Mom, I promise. It wasn't about the money. It was about trust, about knowing that at least one of my children carried the values their father had worked so hard to instill. That night, as Emily and I shared dinner, Daniel knocked on the door. His eyes were red, his shoulders slumped. Mom, he said softly, please, forgive me. I let Daniel inside. He sat at the same kitchen table where he had once demanded my signature on those papers, only now his hands shook with regret. I lost everything, he whispered. Claire, her family, my dignity, all gone. I don't know what to do. I looked at him for a long time. My husband's words echoed in my mind. If Daniel chooses money over love, let him face the consequences. But if he chooses to return, forgive him. I will always love you, Daniel, I said finally. But love doesn't erase betrayal. Respect does. And until you learn that, forgiveness won't come easy. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. In that moment, I realized something profound. Money can be earned, lost, and earned again. But respect, once broken, is the hardest thing to rebuild. The wedding, the humiliation, the greed. It had all led to this one truth. As I sat there, Emily's hand in mine, Daniel broken before me, I spoke the lesson I knew would stay with me forever. Respect matters more than money, and now they know it too.